Miller Moss might not be the most interesting man in the world, but he is one of the most interesting quarterbacks in 2024.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holton, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your team every day, your first listen, whether you're watching this show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download your podcast. Always remember this show is free, and never forget how much I appreciate your support. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada, and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Some of you might remember those old Dos Equis beer commercials, the ones, the most interesting man in the world. Well, Miller Moss, he was just named one of the most interesting quarterbacks for the 2024 season. ESPN's Bill Connolly put together a list of his 10 most interesting quarterbacks for the 2024 college football season. Here's his list from number 1 down to number 10. Drew Allar, Penn State. Kyron Drones, Virginia Tech. Jalen Daniels, Kansas. Avery Johnson, Kansas State. Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee. KJ Jefferson, UCF, Central Florida. Josh Hoover, TCU. Miller Moss coming in at number 8, USC. Matthew Sluka and Haji Malik Williams, UNLV. I guess they're tied for 9th. And then Preston Stone at SMU. So basically, if you don't know these names, these are the guys that are you have a lot of eyes on them this season for different reasons. And if you kind of look at the quarterbacks that are returning in college football this year, just besides those names, I don't want to call it a down year, but there isn't really a consensus, and I'm finger quoting this, Caleb Williams type of player out there in 2024. I'm not saying, who's the next generational talent. What I'm talking about, the face of college football. And you could probably say that about any position, really, if you think about it. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Texas, Shedeur Sanders, Colorado. Those are the guys that are going to get the early headlines at the quarterback position this year. But I think that leaves a lot of room for someone like a Miller Moss to kind of push his way into the conversation. I mean, he kind of announced his arrival. He's like, "Hey, I'm here at the party. Remember me? Holiday Bowl, 6 touchdowns, 300 plus yards. That'll get you noticed." And I think that's why Connolly has Moss on his list. He points out in that game against the Louisville Cardinal, Miller completed 23 out of his 33 pass attempts for 372 yards and 6 touchdowns. Not bad. And he did something that just 6 other quarterbacks did last season. According to Connolly, Moss generated a QBR score of 98 or higher with at least 30 dropbacks. It's pretty good. And he also, and what I would say is, don't think that Miller Moss is just a game manager, dink and dunk type of guy, even though, you want somebody who's smart with the ball, who's willing just to take what the defense gives you. But, Connolly mentioned that Miller completed 5 passes of 35 yards or more in that game. All 5 of those passes went to a freshman wide receiver. This is why Miller's kind of an interesting prospect this year. He did it with a young receiver group in his first start. Now they're going to have a whole bunch of time to kind of become each other's best friends, BFFs. And remember, Louisville was considered a really good defense in 2023. And so that was Miller's first start. So it may be Miller time, but as far as I'm concerned, Miller is USC's starting quarterback. unless, Lincoln Riley gets a really good quarterback fight. And that's what he said. Lincoln Riley said he had to go find a guy who wasn't afraid to come to USC and fight Miller for the job. Because, Will Howard, Lincoln Riley went and did an in-home with Will Howard. Will Howard watched the bowl game and said, you know what? I'm out of here. I'll go be an Ohio State Buckeye. I got nobody there that's going to challenge me. So that's what Jaden Mayava's doing. He's going to come in. He's going to try and do what Will Howard didn't want to do. He's going to say, all right, in 3 weeks, Miller, you and me, we're going to duke it out. We're going to fight for that starting quarterback job. And that's what Lincoln Riley wants. He said, this spring, we're going to let the guys in the room compete. That's a hallmark of all great quarterback rooms that we've had. I think it's been a hallmark of this program forever and ever. I think to be a starter at a place like USC, you've got to go compete. You've got to go earn it. We want that to be a part of every single position room. So why not do it with one? Why not do it with the one that's kind of at the center of this? Okay. Speaking of the quarterback battle, both Miller and Jaden Mayava, both of those guys, they made the early Heisman betting odds list. Yes, it's another way too early list that's out there. But at least this one you can maybe get rich, right? Your leaders at the top of the board. You have Carson Beck, the returning quarterback from Georgia, and Quinn Ewers from Texas. Both of those guys are at the top. They're at a plus 700. Followed, you've got Garrett Nussmeier, LSU's quarterback, Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, and Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee. Those guys are coming in at plus 1,200. Then you got Cam Ward, Miami, Jalen Milroe, Alabama, Will Howard, Ohio State. They're coming in at plus 1,500. Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, Dylan Gabriel. He's now at Oregon, I believe, his 6th year. Plus, those guys are plus 2,000. And then you have Miller Moss, Drew Alar, both at plus 2,500. Jaden Mayava, he's sliding in there at plus 3,000. So, I don't know. Does anybody have any spare change lying around? If you're feeling lucky, go drop $50, got $100. I mean, there's some nice returns on those investments if you're thinking about it. And if you want to get one of those lottery type of returns, they have Zachariah Branch listed at plus 25,000. Look, I think I've got an extra $20 laying around somewhere for that. Yeah, if I could take 20,000 and turn that into what, 500K, I'm good. I'm willing to take the $20 loss if I can come home with a $500,000. So, because Miller Moss is now one of the most interesting quarterbacks in the country, I thought I would close out the segment with a little bit of fun. What would be some good, most interesting man in the world memes for Miller? Remember those, like I said, those Dos Equis commercials? Remember, Miller Moss, he actually has an NIL deal for a cologne company. Yeah, you can order your favorite fragrance, men or women. Just head on over. He's got that going for him. So how about Miller Moss's blood smells so sweet, you could bottle it for sale. We're talking sports. If opportunity knocks and Miller isn't home, opportunity's going to wait for Miller to get home. We've all heard of Shark Week, right? Yeah. Well, it's always Miller time. All right, guys. There you go. That's my ad campaign. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know. Get creative. Talk to me. You know where to find me on YouTube. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. How about the 2024 Nissan Rogue? Is the perfect for city drives and great escapes. They also have something called the class exclusive Google built in. is your always updating assistant to call in for almost anything. So wherever you are, as Google. And gone are the days of connecting your phone. Touchstone Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen information system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Hey, you want something a little bit bigger, a little bit more rugged? How about the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder? Has room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. And with over 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing power, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada, and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. You know, on the show, you get a lot of in-depth analysis and hot takes, right? Well, let me give you my hottest take of the day. The best lineup in LA right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. They start off at the top with one of my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you the low rates and save you big time bucks. Next up, they've got an exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans team. With super low rates and flexible payment terms, those guys you need to check out. Rounding out their lineup, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these dudes, you can lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat these guys at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA and the surrounding area and let one of their amazing team members help you. Or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com. That's LOGIX banking.com. Also, Logix is a proud sponsor of For the Troops. For more information on the upcoming For the Troops Gala, visit www.forthetroops.org/event for more information. All right, we're going to talk a little bit of hoops in this segment. And not just men, we're going to get it started with the women. Something positive to talk about. They are the 5th ranked team in the country, and they won. Yeah, they beat the Arizona Lady Wildcats in double overtime at Galen Center, 95-93. And I'm bringing that up because we're getting really close to the postseason tournament time. And I guess the NCAA selection committee, they released a 16-team early release. Right now, the Lady Trojans, they're number 2 seed. So we'll see what happens with them as they make their way through the end of the regular season and through the Pac-12 postseason. Now, so if you want to see a USC team play in postseason, it's going to be the women. Just get that out of the way right now. The men can't win 2 games in a row. So I don't know what makes anyone believe that they're going to win 4 games in a row in Las Vegas. Not going to happen. USC played their final Pac-12 game up on the Palouse. They took on Washington State. Surprising, number 19 in the country, Washington State. DJ Rodman was making a return home where he started his college career. If you don't know, if you haven't been watching college hoops, or if you're not a fan of the Wazoo Cougs, Washington State Cougars, they swept Arizona this year. Yeah. Arizona's been pretty much a top 5 team all year. The Cougars are going to be a really tough out come tournament time. And not only did they sweep Arizona, well, they swept USC. Yeah, following their 75-72 come from behind victory. Yeah, that's what USC is. Here's a stat. You're going to love it. This is, excuse me. If you're wondering why there's a growing contingency of the USC fan base that thinks it might be time to move on from Andy Enfield, here's a stat for you. Going into this game, Enfield's teams were 0-16 on the road against top 25 teams. Well, let's improve that record, or not. Well, I don't think that's the right way to say it, but they're now 0-17. And this was a game they probably should have won. I have said that quite a few times this year. USC, they dropped to 11-17 overall. They're 5-12 in their final Pac-12 season. I mean, seriously, what a way to say goodbye to the conference, men. And I'm talking I'm not picking on basketball. The football team, they tripped over their kickstand earlier this year. What in the hell happened? Both these teams were supposed to contend. Neither team came close to contending. Anyway, back to this game. USC, they actually came to play defense. They played defense early. They played pretty good defense the entire game. At one point, they were leading 8-2 at the first media break. Isaiah Collier was showing why he's going to be a lottery pick. He was on. First half, he was the man. I saw a stat line when USC held a 24-23 lead with about 11 and a half minutes to go in that first half. Isaiah Collier had 8 points at this point. But what impressed me was the balance. Everyone who had played in the game at that point, 9 USC players had gotten in the game with 11:38 to play. And besides Collier's 8, someone had at least 2 points. Everyone was involved. And then coming out of that media timeout, USC actually went on a little mini run. And that forced the Cougars head coach, Kyle Smith, to call a quick timeout. He didn't want to do it, but he had to. Because all of a sudden now, Isaiah Collier went from 8 points. He had 14 points. 13 minutes were gone in the first half. So in a minute and a half, he scored another 6. USC bumped that lead up to 32-23. You want to know why Coach Enfield criticized his big man earlier in the year? My everydayers who watch the show and remember, because I pointed this out. He was talking about how he's got 4 big men, and they all are terrible at rebounding. Well, perfect. Let me set this up for you. Understand why Coach Enfield's been so critical of his guys, and I love this. When USC had all of the momentum, and they had the ball, the score was 38-27. There was about 2 minutes to play in the first half. They had the ball when Vince Uwachukwu grabbed the rebound, but he was sloppy with it. And one of the Cougar players knocked it out of bounds, out of his hands, out of bounds. Excuse me. Again, so it was fortunate the ball went out of bounds and USC was able to maintain possession. Coach was livid. I mean, he went ballistic at the timeout. I mean, emphatically, he was miming, squeeze the ball, be strong with it. And I think he had maybe a couple of expletives tied in there too. It's so frustrating when you see someone who's 7'1", holding the ball like this over his head, but he's holding it like it's like it's Simba. Squeeze the life out of that thing. Nobody should be able to come around and just knock it out of your hands. And that had Coach infuriated. Me too. And then I smiled when I saw how angry he was. This season, one thing has been really consistent with this team. And that consistency is USC is going to USC. They're going to get a big lead, and then they're going to give up a big lead at the end of the half. They've kind of adopted, they couged it. All year they've been couging it. So they led by 12 with 1:30 to go in the first half. Then they led 39-35 at halftime. What is so frustrating is this team shows how good they can be. And then they pretend and they actually believe that they are that good, and they lose their edge. They don't know how to play like they're an underdog, like they're not that good. In the second half of the game, it was tight. Washington State, they're at home. They're a good team. And here's a perfect example of just not being technically sound. I talked about the rebounding thing just a second ago with Vince Uwachukwu. And this is on defense now. They had one of the Washington State ball handlers. It was Miles Rice. he trapped himself on the sideline. But the two USC defenders, they didn't close the front door. In other words, they left a gap, and Rice was able to kind of pivot through, step through the double team off the sideline, and throw the ball across court to the open man. Yeah, he drains the open three. I mean, that's bad defense. But, I point that out because they were so good for most of the game. But it's those little things. It's how you kill momentum. And it's because they were so good defensively throughout the game. It actually helped them bump the lead back up to 9 points with 12 minutes to play. So USC held a 57-48 lead, 12 minutes to go. When they had 57 points, 38 of those points were in the paint. They were dominating inside. Vince, the Prince, Uchuku, he had 11. He also finished with 11 points. So he did not score again from that point forward. He was also the team's leading rebounder with 5. Not good. USC and Washington State actually had 27 rebounds apiece. USC held their own there. So when the game was, USC had a 62-60 lead, just under 7 minutes, 6.5, 6:45 to go. They led the entire game to that point. Then Washington State tied the game. This was one of those games where Boogie Ellis disappeared. He was great against UCLA. Nowhere to be found. I mean, there was a minute to go. USC was trailing 73-69. He had 5 points. And he also had a really bad turnover near the end of the game. If you watch it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You just when you're a fifth-year player, you don't make that play. You know better. Anyway, this team plays good defense most of the time, unless they have to fight through or over a screen, and they don't. They don't fight through those screens. They would rather go underneath the screen. And they did that again against Washington State, and they got burned every time. That's against a team that's shooting 10 for 20 from behind the arc. That's not only lazy defense, that's bad defense. You got to recognize those guys are shooting the lights out. I can't go underneath. I got to force him off his spot. And then to really compound it, and I had me doing this, going, whoa, coach, what are you doing? Again, it's late in the game. He switched to a 2-3 zone defense. You're down 2. It's 73-71. There's a minute to play. Why are you doing that? When you're in the zone, you want them to shoot from the outside. They've been successful, and you're compounding it because you're a poor rebounding team. Why would you want to get your guys out of position if you do force the miss? And they did. And then they gave up the rebound and the 2 points. So now you're down 4. It was 75-71. Isaiah Collier got himself to the free throw line. 23 seconds left. He missed one of them. Want to know why USC probably should have won this game? As a team, they shot 16 for 24 from the free throw line. Wazoo, 13 for 17. So how ironic. Before 13 for 17. That was their final free throw shooting percentage. USC was down 75-72. Washington State had their best free throw shooter, 83% at the line. 12 seconds left to go. He missed both. USC didn't have any timeouts. They had the ball. Both Boogie Ellis and Kobe Johnson missed wide open three-point looks. Both of them. This is why it's so frustrating. USC shot 52% from the field, but they were only 2 for 10 from behind the three-point line. Dominated in the paint, 46 points to Washington State's 20. They made up the difference, though, from the three-point line. Washington State, they were 10 for 20. USC was 2 for 10. Here's the difference between USC and Washington State. The Cougars are a solid, fundamentally sound team. USC is not. DJ Robin, he came to LA because he didn't think his old team was going to be good enough to be in the tournament this year. They were going to have a bunch of guys. He didn't think they were good enough to play with him. That's exactly what I've been talking about all year. The attitude on this team is, finger quotes, too NIL. Too much me. I mean, Boogie Ellis, he got paid this year. Isaiah Collier, he's showing off his skill set for the NBA scouts. Kobe Johnson, he's just been lost this year. He's a team captain, but the things that he should have been focusing on as far as becoming a better offensive player, really staying true to being defense, I think he tried to do a little bit too much, and I don't know. He just kind of got lost this year. If anything, it hasn't come together as a team. Injuries, no injuries. It just hasn't worked. Next up, we've got Washington, the Huskies, who, by the way, they throttled UCLA, 94-77. We'll see if USC bounces back going up into Seattle. They can handle the Huskies one last time. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets. You like some live game, same game parlays? You can do that there. And they've got some exclusive prop bets as well, plus a whole lot more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. It's that time of the week. I'm in one of my moods, and you're going to hear about it. But this is not the first time, and it's not going to be the last time that this particular topic has got me a little irritated. But let me say it. It's not just the recruits that take their star rankings and their NIL valuations way too seriously. I know where they're learning it. Starts at home. Parents, family members, whomever's running a shotgun for them or point man during their recruitment. Let me remind everybody what the NCAA rules say. They prevent schools from paying players directly. This is what NIL actually is: name, image, likeness. College coaches, you cannot offer high school prospects money as a recruiting enticement to pick your school. Plus, current student athletes cannot receive compensation for their athletic achievements. In other words, you cannot pay somebody because they threw a touchdown. However, players can profit off of endorsement deals, signing autographs, selling apparel, corporate partnerships, charitable appearances, teaching camps, and starting their own businesses, among other things. So those are the loopholes. Oh, and by the way, they can also hire, an agent, professional service providers to look out for their best NIL interests. And because of this, everyone is looking to cash in on a teenager. The other day, On3 released their new player rankings. And apparently one parent didn't like where his son was ranked. He was ranked the #4 overall player in the country, but that adult wanted him to be the #1 overall player. It wasn't good enough. The reason? It might affect his NIL valuation. The kid hasn't played his senior year of high school yet. let alone a down in college. And he already has an estimated, well, he's estimated to be worth $1 million before all that. But that wasn't good enough. So right now, On3 is, I guess, on a timeout until further notice, until the new rankings come out, I guess. I mean, really? That's how you're going to act? I don't know. I don't get it. It's just, that to me, that makes no sense. And again, this is not the first time this has happened in the industry. Oh, it's happened a few times where a recruit or a parent or a handler will say, we're not going to talk to you right now. We don't like what you guys ranked us at. Even though you might personally had nothing to do with the ranking. It's stupid. And it's childish. We are literally at the point where college football, basketball, high school recruiting, it has jumped an ocean of sharks. When was the last time you've been to a 7-on-7 event? I encourage you to get out to one of those. I really do. And just be the silent observer. And notice the sound you hear. You'll hear this din of zzz. There are more drones and videographers out there than teams sometimes. It's crazy. No one is out there to support their team. Everybody's out there as an individual. They're out there for social media likes, getting their fill. It's just, I don't know. I know I've talked about this before. I have to bring it up again, though, especially with this most recent thing. You know, putting a network on timeout because their young man, their son, was only considered the 4th best player in the country. Wasn't the number 1. Sometimes I think parents forget that future rankings are going to come out. Let's see what the kid looks like at another camp. People, pump your brakes. Use some common sense. Remember who the adult in the room is supposed to be. All right. That's my Friday rant. If you like the show, you like what you see, and I know you do, you better, and you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. It's going to help the show grow. Become a subscriber. Smash that thumb like you're the Hulk. Smash it. Thumbs up, smash it down, and don't forget to hit that bell notification button. And that way you will not miss one episode 5 times a week. And when you're done making Locked on USC your first listen every day, don't forget, I'm over there at weareSC.com. If you're a new subscriber, we got a $1 subscription special. Go check it out. Got a lot of good info. So until our next episode of Locked on USC, everyone, you know what to do.